QuitSmokingWeed.com, the podcast on Spotify.
Well, it is 3 a.m. You are lying there and, your body is just completely exhausted. You can feel it in your bones, but your brain is wide awake and running at full speed. And you start doing the math. Like if I fall asleep right now, I get 4 hours. If it takes until 4, I get 3. And underneath that math is a quiet fear that this is just how sleep works for you now.
Right.
But it isn't. And the reason why is the part almost nobody explains. Today, we are breaking down exactly why sleep falls apart after quitting, why the dreams turn so vivid and disturbing, how the nights actually change over the weeks, and what genuinely helps without reaching for something that makes it worse.
A lot of people approach this period entirely the wrong way, though. They treat it like ordinary insomnia. They go to the pharmacy and buy a generic sleep aid, or they pour a drink to just knock themselves out.
Sure.
And that is the exact reason they stay stuck. We are not dealing with a standard sleep problem here. We are dealing with a REM sleep problem. Before looking at any solutions, you really have to understand the mechanics of what is happening in your brain overnight.
I think we need to unpack what REM actually is and what it was doing before you quit. Let us talk about what sleep actually is when it is functioning normally.
Okay.
A normal sleep cycle lasts about 90 minutes. You drop down through light sleep into deep physical sleep, and then you come back up into REM sleep. And that cycle repeats 4 or 5 times a night.
Yes, and during that deep physical sleep, your body is repairing tissue and releasing growth hormone. But the REM phase, the rapid eye movement phase, is an entirely different process.
Well, so?
Well, your brain becomes incredibly active, blood flow to the brain increases. This is when you dream. The brain is taking the emotional experiences and the information from your day, filtering them, storing the important parts as memories, and discarding the rest. It is essentially your brain cleaning house.
Right. So when someone is using cannabis heavily, the THC fundamentally disrupts that 90-minute cycle. It is highly effective at putting you to sleep quickly, which is why so many people use it as a sleep aid.
They do.
But once you are asleep, the THC acts like a chemical blockade against REM sleep.
You spend significantly more time in deep physical sleep and almost no time in REM sleep. Over months or years, the brain realizes it is being chemically forced out of the dreaming phase. The brain is an efficiency engine. If an external chemical is suppressing a function, the brain stops trying so hard to perform that function. It downregulates the receptors involved in initiating REM sleep.
So the brain essentially surrenders control to the THC.
Yes.
And when you quit, the THC is gone. The blockade is lifted. The brain is suddenly left with downregulated receptors and no external chemical managing the cycle.
The result is biological chaos. The brain realizes it has a massive deficit of REM sleep to make up for, so it overcorrects violently. Instead of waiting 90 minutes to enter a dreaming phase, the brain might plunge into REM sleep within 20 minutes of your head hitting the pillow.
Think of REM sleep like a tightly coiled spring. For years, THC has been a heavyweight pressing that spring down. You keep adding pressure year after year. When you finally quit, you remove the weight. That spring does not just slowly return to its normal shape. It violently recoils. It shoots upward. And that is the vivid, unfamiliar, and deeply disturbing dreams.
The brain is trying to process a backlog of emotional data it has been ignoring for years. The dreams are intense because the brain is working in overdrive. It is staying in the REM phase much longer than a normal sleeper would.
So this violent recoil explains a very specific phenomenon. The person staring at the ceiling at midnight and the person waking up in a panic at 2 a.m. feel like they're having entirely different experiences.
We do.
I have heard people describe those as completely different disorders.
Yeah.
The person waking up at 2 a.m. thinks they have a maintenance issue, while the person up until 4 a.m. thinks they have an onset issue. Are you saying they're experiencing the exact same biological glitch?
They're the exact same underlying REM rebound. The architecture of your sleep cycle is just chaotic right now. The brain is attempting to rebuild its own natural signaling. For the person who cannot fall asleep until 4 a.m., their nervous system is so flooded with the anxiety of the withdrawal and the dysregulation of their internal clock that they cannot even initiate the first stage of light sleep. The cognitive arousal is simply too high.
So they're too wired to cross the threshold into sleep.
Basically. But for the person who falls asleep immediately and wakes up at 2 a.m., their sleep drive is strong enough to cross that initial threshold. The problem occurs once they enter the sleep cycle.
I see.
They drop into sleep, hit that intense REM rebound very quickly, and the sheer intensity of the dreaming phase startles their nervous system awake. The brain is essentially shocking itself out of sleep because the REM phase is so aggressive and unfamiliar.
Oh.
And once they are awake, the anxiety of being awake takes over and they cannot get back down.
The sheer intensity of the dreaming phase is literally shocking the system awake. That distinction matters deeply because if you treat this like generic insomnia, you look for a blunt instrument.
You reach for alcohol or strong sedatives. You just want to be unconscious. You think unconsciousness is the same thing as sleep?
Unconsciousness is not sleep.
No, it is not. Alcohol is a perfect example. A drink will put you under quickly, but alcohol is another potent REM suppressant. It fragments your sleep architecture even further.
Right.
As the alcohol wears off in the middle of the night, it triggers a spike in glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter. This causes you to wake up feeling wired and anxious, compounding the problem you already had.
Sedatives and sleeping pills do the exact same thing.
And yeah,
They suppress the central nervous system, they knock you out, but they do not allow the brain to move naturally through the 90-minute cycles.
they suppress the exact recalibration process the brain is trying to finish. The entire goal here is to support the recalibration, not shut it down again with a different chemical.
Understanding that the brain is actively rebuilding its own signaling completely changes how we need to view the timeline. It is not a straight path to perfect sleep.
Not at all.
The roughest nights are early. You are usually looking at the first week. That is when the REM rebound peaks and the neurochemical deficit from the lack of THC is at its deepest.
Recovery is a wave pattern. The middle phase of this timeline is what we call the resilience phase. This is the hardest part psychologically.
I can imagine.
You will have a few better nights. You might get 6 hours of unbroken sleep and think you are finally cured. Then the next night, you snap awake at 3 a.m. and cannot get back to sleep.
That middle phase breaks a lot of people because of the psychological whiplash.
Yeah.
It is incredibly demoralizing to sleep badly on night 10 after having a genuinely good night 8.
Yes.
The immediate instinct when you hit that bad night 10 is to feel like you are completely back to square one. You think the healing process has stopped and you are permanently broken.
One bad night inside an improving trend is still an improving trend. The brain does not heal in a linear fashion. It tests a new baseline, gets overwhelmed by the recalibration, retreats slightly, and then stabilizes again at a slightly higher level.
The brain is literally testing its own signaling pathways.
Exactly. By around weeks 3 to 4, sleep is usually functional again for most people. You are not waking up multiple times, and you are getting enough rest to function during the day.
But there is a longer-term payoff that people rarely talk about.
For many long-term users, by week 6 to 8, sleep actually becomes meaningfully better than it was during their active use.
Wait, really?
Yes. While they were smoking, they were getting chemically flattened sleep. They were resting physically, but they were missing the cognitive restoration of full REM cycles. Once the brain is fully healed, they wake up with a level of mental clarity and energy they have not felt in years.
Since we cannot sedate our way out of this recalibration, we need to look at what actively supports the nervous system through this wave pattern. The full toolkit requires multiple elements working together.
There is no one magic pill for this.
The first element is magnesium glycinate. You take 200 to 400 milligrams in the evening.
It calms a nervous system that is still pumping out elevated stress hormones. It does this by supporting the regulation of GABA.
We need to explain what GABA actually is. It stands for gamma-aminobutyric acid, but the name is less important than what it does. It is an amino acid that functions as the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter in your brain.
Right.
Think of GABA as your brain's internal brake pedal. It slows down the firing of neurons, it reduces anxiety, promotes relaxation, and prepares the brain for sleep.
When you were using cannabis, THC was artificially pressing that brake pedal for you. It was enhancing the effects of GABA externally. Because the brain is an efficiency engine, it responded by producing less GABA on its own.
The brain realizes it does not need to manufacture its own brake fluid if a chemical is doing the job for it.
Now that the THC is gone, your natural brake pedal is faulty. You do not have enough GABA to slow your racing thoughts. Your nervous system is constantly accelerating, which is why your heart races when you lie down.
So magnesium is essentially providing the raw materials the brain needs to repair that brake pedal. It helps the brain produce and utilize its own natural GABA again.
It is a subtle shift. It takes time to build up in the system, which is why it is not a quick fix that knocks you unconscious. It is structural support.
The type of magnesium is critical. Magnesium glycinate is highly bioavailable and bound to glycine, which is an amino acid that also promotes relaxation.
Other forms, like magnesium citrate or oxide, are more likely to cause digestive issues and do not effectively cross the blood-brain barrier to help the nervous system.
The next element is CBD oil in the evening. This helps ease the wired lying awake tension. It works by interacting with your endocannabinoid system, but it operates entirely differently than THC.
It inhibits the enzyme that breaks down anandamide.
Anandamide is your brain's own natural calming molecule. The name actually comes from the Sanskrit word for bliss.
It regulates mood, appetite, and sleep. During active addiction, your brain stopped producing as much of it because the external THC was flooding the receptors. During withdrawal, your natural anandamide levels are severely depleted.
By preventing the breakdown of whatever anandamide you do have left, the CBD allows those natural calming signals to linger longer in your system.
It is giving your natural bliss molecule a chance to actually do its job before it gets swept away by enzymes.
Let us talk about the morning after a terrible night. If I only get 3 hours of sleep on a Tuesday night, my body is screaming for rest. The logical move is to force myself to stay in bed, sleep in on Wednesday morning, and catch up so I can function at work. I need to extend the sleep window.
I strongly disagree with that approach.
You do?
Yes, a fixed wake time every single morning is non-negotiable. It is the single strongest lever you have over your sleep architecture right now.
Wait, hold on. If I have only slept 3 hours, my body is operating at a massive deficit. You were telling me to force myself out of bed when I'm that exhausted.
I am.
That sounds like pure torture. Why on earth would I do that to myself?
Because sleeping in fragments the next night's sleep, it pushes the entire recovery timeline out longer. You are treating the immediate exhaustion, but you are destroying the biological rhythm.
The brain regulates sleep through a process called sleep drive. Think of sleep drive like hunger. The longer you are awake, the hungrier your brain gets for sleep.
If you sleep in until 10 a.m., you are essentially eating a massive snack right before dinner. You are burning off the sleep drive that you need to fall asleep that night.
You must get up at the same time every morning, even after 3 hours of sleep. The consistency of your wake time is how your brain learns the day and night distinction again. It anchors your circadian rhythm.
It builds the sleep pressure you need to fall asleep the following night. You reinforce that anchor by adding morning light within the first half hour of waking. Stepping outside or sitting near a bright window resets your circadian clock.
Morning light is the most effective biological reset signal available. When natural sunlight hits your eyes, it sends a signal directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain.
That signal halts the production of melatonin and spikes your cortisol levels to wake you up. It also starts a timer. That morning light exposure dictates when your body will naturally produce melatonin later that evening. If you sleep in a dark room until 11 a.m., that timer starts late, and you will not feel sleepy until 2 a.m. the next night. You are just perpetuating the cycle of insomnia.
Speaking of the biological clock, we need to address melatonin supplements. Low-dose melatonin should only be used if falling asleep is the primary problem.
You must stick to a small dose, around 0.5 to 1 milligram. Most people make the mistake of buying the pharmacy versions of 5 to 10 milligrams.
Flooding the system with that much melatonin seems like a terrible idea when the brain is already volatile. High doses of melatonin make the vivid dreams even more intense.
That is the exact opposite of what you need when you are already dealing with a massive REM rebound. You are just adding fuel to the fire. You only need a tiny fraction of a milligram to signal to the brain that it is time for bed.
You also have to eliminate the things that are secretly extending the timeline. Avoid alcohol completely in the first 2 weeks.
A drink feels like a quick fix at midnight when you are desperate, but it is a well-worn path back to relapse. It compromises your judgment when you are most vulnerable.
It also ruins whatever fragile sleep architecture you have left. Over-the-counter antihistamine sleep aids are another massive trap.
People take them because they cause drowsiness, but they cause severe next-day grogginess. They leave you feeling hungover, and they do absolutely nothing to help the core neurochemical recalibration of your sleep cycle.
You also need to stop afternoon caffeine early. Your nervous system is highly sensitized right now. The receptors in your brain are misfiring.
The cup of coffee you used to handle at 4 p.m. will now keep your alerting system active until midnight. Cut the caffeine off by noon to give your system a fighting chance.
Even with a perfect toolkit, you will still face a rough night on the wave where you snap awake at 3 a.m. Knowing how to handle that specific moment without spiraling is vital.
The biggest mistake is lying in bed trying to force sleep. The more you do this, the more your brain associates the physical space of the bed with wakefulness, anxiety, and frustration.
The bed needs to remain a trigger for sleep. If you are tossing and turning, frustrated that you are awake, your brain starts linking the mattress to stress.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember staring at the ceiling and constantly checking my phone to calculate the hours. You watch the clock go from 3.15 to 3.45, and the anxiety just compounds with every minute.
Checking the clock immediately engages the alerting system. You do the math, you calculate how terrible tomorrow will be, and your brain activates further. Turn the clock around, put the phone in another room.
The protocol for 3 a.m. is straightforward. If you've been awake more than 30 to 40 minutes, stop forcing it. Get up.
Do not stay under the covers fighting it. Go to another room with very dim lighting. You want the lighting low so you do not suppress your natural melatonin production.
Do not look at your phone or a television screen. The blue light will wake you up further.
Do something quiet, like reading a physical book or doing a crossword puzzle. You do this until you feel genuinely drowsy, not just tired, but actively drowsy.
There is a difference between physical fatigue and the heavy-eyed feeling of drowsiness.
Once you feel heavy-eyed, then you go back to bed. You have to break the anxious loop.
Withdrawal insomnia is temporary, predictable, and entirely survivable. The sleep recalibration you are experiencing is the brain rebuilding its own signaling.
It is not permanent damage. The 3 a.m. wake-ups mean the brain is actively catching up on years of suppressed cycles. You are on schedule. You are not failing.
If the insomnia is severe, or if it does not lift as the weeks progress, you should talk to a doctor. This protocol is for the standard recalibration phase, but prolonged sleep deprivation can exacerbate other issues.
There's no shame in seeking medical support if the baseline does not improve.
We want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about the sheer amount of energy your brain is expending right now just to figure out how to dream again.
It is repairing receptors, balancing neurochemicals, and processing years of backlogged emotions.
What kind of clarity and focus will that same brain be capable of during the day once it is finally fully rested?
For more on getting through this, head to quit-smoking-weed.com.